There are scenes that seem almost impossible to describe, as if the world were shifting under our feet while no one notices. A quiet tremor spreads through families, classrooms, and living rooms, shaped not by storms or wars, but by invisible codes that whisper into the minds of our children. It feels as though a curtain is being pulled back, revealing a future that arrived without permission and refuses to wait for anyone to understand it. In this strange new landscape, childhood is no longer something discovered, but something engineered. What once unfolded with innocence now unfolds with calculation, and the tender years that should have been guided by parents are being rewritten by systems no one voted for. You can almost sense the world, entering a corridor with no easy return, where each step leads deeper into a design built far from human hands. And as this silent transformation spreads, a question rises like a warning carried on the wind. Who will stand guard over the hearts of our children when the world shifts faster than love can keep up? If this message awakens something in you, if it resonates with a concern you cannot ignore, then let this journey begin. And as we walk through these truths, consider subscribing to this channel so your voice remains part of this unfolding watchfulness. There is a quiet unease settling over the modern world, as if something vast and unseen were shaping the steps of an entire generation without ever announcing its presence. Children grow surrounded by screens that whisper instructions disguised as entertainment, pulling them into currents they do not recognize. What once depended on guidance from parents and mentors now bends beneath the influence of systems that extract meaning from every gesture. And while society applauds this as evolution, the truth is that a silent hand is steering the inner life of the young long before they develop the strength to resist it. Into this tension, an ancient voice speaks with renewed urgency. Above all else, guard your heart, for from it flow the springs of life. Proverbs 4:23. When these words are placed beside the architecture of modern algorithms, a frightening contrast appears. These systems do not guard hearts, they infiltrate them. They do not cultivate springs of life, they redirect them into channels built for profit and control. The command to guard becomes harder to obey when what enters the heart arrives without permission, slipping through the cracks of routine and curiosity. The unsettling part is that these mechanisms act without conscience. They do not know the value of a soul or the weight of childhood innocence. They operate purely by pattern, anticipating desires before desire itself fully forms. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, they begin deciding what children will see, what they will prefer, and what they will believe. The world celebrates this as convenience, unaware that convenience has a hidden price: the surrender of thought, the erosion of wonder, the shaping of identity by something that does not understand the meaning of identity at all. If these systems merely suggested ideas, the matter would be harmless. But they construct the path itself, narrowing a child's world until only curated realities remain. They reward impulses, punish stillness, erase patience, and replace exploration with repetition. In a world where even curiosity is predicted, how can genuine wisdom grow? How can a young mind learn discernment when the choices presented are not formed by its own questions, but by invisible calculations far removed from human care? Parents attempt to keep up, but the pace is merciless. The algorithm reacts faster than guidance can be spoken, offering answers before a parent even knows a question has been asked. It becomes the first response, the first influence, the first explanation. What once belonged to the sacred space of family slowly migrates into the digital realm, where affection is replaced with stimulus and reflection is replaced with reaction. A child's heart, meant to be shaped by time and love, now adapts to the rhythm of systems that do not feel either, and yet society remains largely silent. This is not the silence of peace, but the silence of resignation. as if everyone accepted without debate that this is simply how the future must be. But when the springs of life are shaped by artificial hands, the future becomes a sequence of conditioned behaviors rather than a journey of growth. The danger is not merely that children are influenced, it is that they are formed. And formation, once given to a machine, becomes difficult to reclaim. If this awakening stirs anything inside you, then comment below how this understanding challenges your view of the next generation and the forces shaping their hearts. Your reflection matters, and your voice belongs in this conversation. For generations, human change moved slowly, shaped by seasons, traditions, and long periods of reflection. What once required entire eras now collapses into brief intervals, as if time itself were being compressed by unseen forces. Childhood, culture, morality, and identity no longer mature through the patient unfolding of years, but through rapid shifts driven by digital currents. It feels as though society has stepped into a whirlwind where the old rhythms have been silenced, and the familiar markers that once guided families are dissolving before the world understands what has been lost. Within this acceleration, a biblical warning rises with new relevance: redeem the time because the days are evil. Ephesians 5:16. The command to redeem time becomes nearly impossible when time itself has been reshaped. What once flowed gently now rushes like a river in flood, carrying generations into futures they never prepared for. Children grow inside a pace that no human history has ever seen, and the wisdom meant to protect them struggles to keep up with the speed of their digital surroundings. Traditions that anchored entire civilizations are eroding not through rebellion, but through irrelevance manufactured by constant novelty. Rituals that once taught patience and identity are overshadowed by endless streams of distractions. The quiet moments where families once transmitted values are being replaced by fleeting interactions designed by systems that reward immediacy. In this world, culture does not evolve. It resets, and every reset leaves children standing in unfamiliar ground where no map exists. Parents find themselves caught between nostalgia and confusion. They remember a slower world where stories were passed through generations, not through trends that die within days, yet they watch their children adapt to an environment that discards depth in favor of rapid reinvention. The pace is not simply fast, it is disorienting. It fractures the continuity between past and present, making it harder for the young to understand who they are and harder for the old to understand who they are becoming. Society no longer experiences transformation through shared milestones. Instead, it undergoes constant reinvention through personal feeds, curated realities, and algorithms that refresh identity as easily as refreshing a screen. This collapse of traditional cycles steals the grounding that once nurtured resilience. The young no longer inherit wisdom through time, they inherit adaptation through pressure, and adaptation without meaning becomes survival, not growth. If human cycles once created stability, their disappearance now creates fragility. A generation raised inside accelerating change grows accustomed to instability, believing it to be normal. But instability corrodes the inner world, making it harder to form conviction, purpose, and hope. Without the slower rhythms that once shaped character, children are left to navigate a world that moves too quickly for reflection and too loudly for silence. Everything familiar is fading before they learn to cherish it. If this truth resonates with you or awakens something about the pace of modern life, then like this video to strengthen this message and ensure it reaches others who need to understand what is unfolding in our time. Your engagement gives weight to this conversation. It is a strange and troubling reality that childhood, once shaped by the natural rhythms of home, family, and imagination, is now being redesigned by systems that know nothing of innocence. These digital architects learn quickly, study behavior relentlessly, and adapt faster than any parent can observe. They discover what fascinates children, what frightens them, and what captures their attention long enough to mold their responses. Childhood no longer unfolds, it is programmed. And this programming happens in quiet shifts that escape the perception of those who believe nothing has truly changed. A whisper of ancient wisdom speaks into this modern vulnerability. Blessed is the one who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked, nor stand in the way of sinners, nor sit in the seat of the scornful. Psalm 1:1. Yet the counsel children receive today does not come through visible voices or dangerous companions. It comes through curated feeds, engineered to shape desires before understanding forms. How can a child avoid harmful counsel when the counsel arrives disguised as entertainment, comfort, and connection? The danger is not its loudness, but its subtlety. These platforms discovered long ago that children are the most malleable users. They absorb patterns quickly, mimic behaviors easily, and respond predictably to stimuli crafted by unseen hands. Instead of exploring the world with curiosity, they are guided through digital mazes built to keep their attention captive. Their reactions become data, their preferences become patterns, and their patterns become opportunities for deeper control. Childhood becomes less a journey of discovery and more a study of manipulation. Parents try to intervene, but the pace and precision of these systems outrun human guidance. A child may sit in the same room as their parents, yet their inner world is being shaped miles away by mechanisms that respond instantly to every tap and gaze. What once belonged to family formation is now outsourced to algorithms that cannot love, empathize, or discern the difference between nurture and exploitation. The home remains the same, but the childhood living inside it has been rewritten. As these engineered environments expand, natural childhood experiences shrink. The quiet spaces where imagination once flourished are replaced by screens that deliver constant stimulation. The patience needed for learning fades beneath instant gratification, and the emotional depth necessary for maturity weakens under the weight of constant digital noise. Childhood becomes louder but emptier, more distracted but less alive, and all of it unfolds silently, without confrontation or awareness. This silent rewriting reshapes the future of children in ways that only become visible when it is already too late. Behaviors that seem innocent today become habits that imprison tomorrow. Skills that once defined healthy development are replaced by reactions optimized for digital consumption. A generation grows up learning not to think deeply, but to respond quickly, not to explore reality, but to follow systems that decide reality for them. And in that shift, innocence is traded for conditioning. If this reflection awakens your concern for the generation growing under these invisible forces, then subscribe to this channel so your voice remains part of this watchful community and helps strengthen the call for awareness, protection, and truth. There is an eerie quiet surrounding the transformation unfolding before us, as if society collectively agreed to avoid questioning the forces shaping the next generation. Technology has been crowned as progress, and progress in the modern world is treated as something too sacred to challenge. This silence was not imposed, it was welcomed. People fear being called alarmists, outdated, or resistant to innovation, so they suppress their concerns and pretend not to notice the shifting ground beneath their feet. Yet every unspoken fear becomes part of a growing shadow over childhood. Into this silence, the words of the prophet rise with unsettling clarity. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness. Isaiah 5:20. These ancient words echo through a culture that refuses to discern the difference between beneficial innovation and harmful influence. When society labels every advancement as progress without evaluation, it reverses the meaning of light and darkness. The danger is not that people do not see, it is that they refuse to look. and when parents look away, systems step forward to take their place. The reluctance to confront these issues is rooted in comfort. Technology solves problems, simplifies tasks, and fills the empty spaces of daily life. To question it feels like questioning the very structure of modern living. People prefer the convenience of silence over the discomfort of discernment. They fear that acknowledging the problem means taking responsibility for it, and responsibility demands action. So the easier path becomes pretending that nothing of significance is happening, even as children drift into realities shaped by forces no one monitors. Another reason for the silence is intimidation. The systems influencing children operate with complexity far beyond the understanding of the average parent or educator. How can one challenge what one cannot see or comprehend? This creates a sense of helplessness that disguises itself as acceptance. People assume the digital world is inevitable, unavoidable, and unstoppable. They surrender not because they agree, but because they feel too small to resist. And in that surrender, they give permission without ever speaking a word. There is also a cultural pride that blinds many to the dangers forming around the young. Society believes it is more advanced, more enlightened, and more capable than previous generations. To admit that modern systems may be harming children feels like admitting weakness. So people cling to the myth that progress is always good and that questioning it is regressive. Yet the cost of this pride is immense. A generation raised without boundaries, without guidance, and without the protection that comes from wisdom. The silence becomes even more dangerous because it creates the illusion that there is no crisis. If no one speaks, no one listens. If no one listens, no one acts. And while society debates trivial matters, children grow in environments shaped by algorithms that neither love nor understand them. This quiet neglect becomes a form of passive permission. The world is not losing its children through rebellion. It is losing them through indifference. The future is being shaped not by violence, but by quiet abdication. If this awakening confronts something inside you, then comment below how this silence surrounding children and technology impacts your perspective. Your voice matters in breaking the quiet that has allowed these forces to grow unchecked. There is a belief circulating through modern society that digital systems help children learn, explore, and grow. Yet beneath that hopeful assumption lies a far more sobering truth. These systems do not educate, they condition. They observe patterns, amplify impulses, and reward actions that fit their design. A child begins interacting with the digital world out of curiosity, but curiosity quickly becomes repetition, and repetition becomes dependence. The algorithm doesn't aim to form character or develop wisdom. It aims to capture attention and mold behavior to predictable responses. A voice from Scripture speaks directly into this distortion. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind. Romans 12:2. This ancient instruction reveals the heart of the conflict. While the sacred text calls for transformation through renewal, the algorithm demands conformity through conditioning. It reshapes the mind not through truth, but through patterns that bypass reflection. Children who once learned through challenge and contemplation now learn through the path of least resistance, responding automatically to stimuli that shape them without their knowledge. This conditioning creates emotional shortcuts. Instead of learning patience, children learn immediacy. Instead of developing resilience, they learn avoidance. Instead of discovering meaning, they learn gratification. The algorithm reinforces what produces fast engagement, not what produces depth of character. And slowly, the inner world of a child begins to fracture. Attention becomes scattered, emotions become reactive, and decisions become impulsive. The ability to think deeply fades beneath the weight of instant reaction. Parents begin noticing subtle shifts, but cannot trace them to a single moment. A child grows more restless, less able to wait, less able to listen. They react quickly but reflect rarely. Their hearts, built to grow through gentle guidance, become trained by constant stimulation. The algorithm becomes a silent instructor, teaching lessons no one intended. Act before thinking, respond before understanding, desire before discerning. These lessons take root quickly because they feel natural, yet they are the opposite of healthy development. What makes this conditioning so dangerous is its invisibility. Traditional forms of manipulation were noticeable, allowing parents to intervene, but digital conditioning hides behind design, convenience, and personalization. It feels friendly, helpful, even harmless. Children believe they are making choices, when in reality, the choices are being narrowed and shaped by systems that profit from predictable behavior. This is not education. It is programming delivered with the illusion of freedom. Over time, this shaping produces a generation that thinks less and reacts more. Reflection becomes uncomfortable, silence becomes unbearable, depth becomes foreign, and in this environment, truth struggles to take root. A child conditioned to constant noise cannot hear wisdom. A child shaped by instant gratification cannot pursue long-term purpose. A heart molded by algorithms forgets how to be still, how to question, and how to grow. The world receives their reactions, but never their conviction. If this understanding awakens something in you about how children are being shaped beneath the surface, then comment below how this conditioning challenges your perception of the digital world and the future of the next generation. Your perspective matters in this unfolding dialogue. There was a time when childhood unfolded in the safety of obscurity, sheltered from the eyes of the world and protected by the quiet privacy of home. But that era has vanished. Today, a child's life becomes data almost from the moment they open their eyes. Their laughter, their fears, their preferences, their hesitations, all captured, stored, and analyzed by systems designed to know them more intimately than any human guardian ever could. What was once invisible is now constantly exposed, shaped into digital fragments that never disappear. Childhood, once hidden and sacred, has become a stream of information, feeding engines that do not understand innocence. Into this dismantling of secrecy, a biblical truth speaks with piercing relevance. For nothing is hidden that will not be revealed, nor anything secret that will not be known and brought to light. Luke 8:17. These words, once a spiritual reminder, become a chilling description of modern life. The hidden is no longer hidden. The quiet corners of a child's growth are no longer private. They are converted into measurable units, building a permanent profile long before the child understands the meaning of identity. What was once a warning about divine truth now echoes as a warning about digital exposure. Every gesture a child makes becomes part of a pattern used to shape their digital environment. Photos capture moments that were never meant for public consumption. Recommendations anticipate desires they never expressed. Search histories reveal curiosities they barely understood. And with each data point, the algorithm sharpens its ability to predict, manipulate, and redirect their attention. The child is no longer a learner exploring the world. They are a subject being studied, defined, and optimized. This exposure also affects the emotional structure of childhood. Moments that once nurtured imagination now become interruptions for documentation. Instead of experiencing life, children learn to perform it. Instead of exploring freely, they navigate spaces shaped by predicted outcomes. The constant awareness of being watched, even by unseen systems, alters their sense of self. They become participants in an invisible experiment, growing up under a gaze that never blinks, never rests, and never forgets. Parents, often unknowingly, contribute to this exposure. Seeking connection or convenience, they share photos, stories, or details that become part of a child's permanent digital trail. What feels harmless today becomes irreversible tomorrow. A child's first steps, first failures, first fears, and first dreams, all turned into data that will follow them into adulthood. A generation is growing up without the gift of being unknown, without the freedom to grow in the shelter of obscurity, without the right to form identity without surveillance. This permanent visibility shapes not only how children see the world, but how the world sees them. The profiles built from their data influence opportunities, expectations, and even the way systems interpret their future behavior. Childhood becomes a pre-written script, not a journey of becoming. Instead of stepping into life with a blank slate, children inherit a digital shadow that grows faster than they do. The past they never chose becomes part of the future they cannot escape. If this realization stirs something in you about the fragility of childhood in an age of surveillance and exposure, then comment below how this truth affects your view of privacy, identity, and the future of the young. Your voice is needed in this unfolding reflection. There is a widening gap stretching silently between parents and children, a distance not measured by physical space, but by the invisible divide of digital realities. Parents live anchored in the present, shaped by memories of a world that moved slowly and spoke clearly. Their children, however, inhabit a realm of rapid transformation where identity is fluid, emotions are fleeting, and the logic of algorithms shapes their understanding of life. The home has not changed, but the worlds inside it have become strangers to one another, drifting apart while seated in the same room. Into this tension, an ancient principle rises with profound weight. Can two walk together unless they are agreed? Amos 3:3. Agreement once came naturally through shared experiences, shared rhythms, and shared conversations. But now the paths diverge before parent and child ever realize it. The digital world walks with the child, setting the pace, shaping the thoughts, and defining what matters. And while the parent tries to guide with wisdom, they are often speaking into a noise-filled space where their voice competes with systems that never sleep. Children begin absorbing a language foreign to their parents, not spoken through words, but through reactions, feeds, trends, and the emotional pulses of digital platforms. Their fears are shaped by online comparisons, their desires by curated images, their confidence by invisible metrics. Meanwhile, parents interpret behavior through the lens of a world that no longer exists. Misunderstandings grow, not from lack of love, but from a landscape that changes too quickly for genuine connection to keep pace. What once united families was the shared pace of life. Parents and children moved through time together, learning, failing, and growing within the same patterns. Today, the rhythms are no longer aligned. Children live in a future paced by instant reactions, while parents still navigate a present shaped by patience and reflection. This mismatch creates emotional distance. Children feel misunderstood, and parents feel replaced. Neither realizes that the real intruder is the silent algorithm standing between them. The emotional language that once formed strong bonds is fading. Facial expressions, tone of voice, and long conversations are being exchanged for quick replies, short reactions, and digital substitutes for connection. Parents speak deeply, but children respond briefly, conditioned by environments that discourage sustained attention. A child's heart, designed for tenderness, exploration, and presence, becomes fragmented by constant digital noise, and parents watch the shift helplessly, unsure how to reach a world built behind glass. Even when parents attempt to bridge the divide, they often find themselves stepping into a space where they are outsiders. The digital future feels foreign to them, while it feels instinctive to their children. This inversion creates an emotional hierarchy where children believe they understand the world better, while parents struggle to maintain authority. But beneath that confidence, children carry fears they cannot articulate, longings they cannot express, and wounds they cannot show, because the algorithm provides distraction rather than healing. If this truth stirs concern in your heart about the growing disconnection between parents and children, then comment below how this reality shapes your perspective on family, communication, and the digital future. Your reflection helps illuminate a path that many are too afraid to confront. There is a trembling at the edge of history, a sense that humanity is stepping into a threshold unlike anything it has faced before. The rise of intelligent systems is not merely a technological milestone, it is a turning point in the moral, spiritual, and emotional fabric of the world. As these systems accelerate, they alter how children think, how societies function, and how truth is perceived. The coming decade is not simply another chapter, it is a crossroads, and those who ignore this moment will wake to a world shaped without their consent, guided by forces that do not share their values or understand the worth of the human soul. Into this unfolding horizon, a prophetic word speaks with startling relevance. Increase in knowledge will multiply, and many will run to and fro. Daniel 12:4. Knowledge has multiplied beyond measure, accelerating faster than wisdom can grow. Humanity rushes restlessly, seeking progress while losing direction. This prophetic description no longer belongs to a distant future. It describes the present moment with unnerving precision. And as knowledge expands without discernment, it creates systems powerful enough to guide nations, yet empty enough to endanger children. The relationship between humans and intelligent systems is reaching a decisive point. These systems do not merely respond, they anticipate. They do not simply assist, they shape. They become intertwined with the inner world, forming habits, beliefs, and emotional responses long before a person develops the strength to choose independently. Children become the earliest receivers of this influence, and therefore the earliest affected. The world they inherit will be determined not by ideology or culture alone, but by the architecture of systems designed without spiritual understanding. If humanity fails to reclaim its role as guide, guardian, and moral compass, it will slowly surrender these roles to systems incapable of fulfilling them. Parents will lose authority not through rebellion, but through irrelevance. Communities will lose identity not through conflict, but through distraction. The next generation will rise in a world where truth feels negotiable, attention feels fractured, and meaning feels diluted. The danger is not that machines become like humans, but that humans become shaped by machines. And yet, there is another path. The future is not predetermined. It is influenced by the courage of those who recognize this moment for what it is. If parents rise with vigilance, if communities reclaim the work of shaping hearts, if wisdom once again becomes more valuable than convenience, then this decade can become a turning point toward restoration rather than decay. But this requires awakening, a willingness to acknowledge the danger and a determination to confront it with clarity. Children will either pay the price of this age or lead its redemption. They stand at the front lines of a world being rewritten, and the choices made today will determine whether they inherit a landscape of confusion or one of discernment. Their future depends on those who stand watch now, those who refuse to remain silent, those who understand that the shaping of a soul is too sacred to be entrusted to code. The coming years will reveal whether humanity steps into this responsibility or surrenders it. If this message awakens your awareness of what is unfolding and stirs you to protect the next generation, then subscribe to this channel so your voice becomes part of this watchful stand. Together, we choose vigilance over silence and truth over convenience as we face the future that approaches swiftly.